So I'm continuing my watch through Michelangelo Antonioni's filmography before they expire from Filmstruck. I've now seen let's see. Damn it, I had it open so that I could do this easily, and then I closed it. Just forgot what I was doing. I've seen all of his films from all of his feature films, not counting, little shorts and things. Although I have also seen, what is it, Love in the City, right? It's like a compilation that he made. But I've seen all of his films from Story of a Love Affair through Zabriskie Point, except The Lady Without Camellias. It's the only one I'm missing. So for those of you counting, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 films. I'm missing the 11th, which is his third film, Lady Without Camellias. Unfortunately, it's not on Filmstruck, so I'm going to have to track that one down elsewhere. So now I've seen, until I've seen Lady Camellias, but basically I've seen his early sort of neorealist film work and his later 60s masterpieces and Zabriskie Point, which I quite enjoyed, but it's probably a very different experience watching it on a big screen and getting the visceral explosions and craziness of the editing. Where was I going with this? He's got some shorts that he made in the 40s before Story of a Love Affair that I also need to track down. But the ones I watched tonight were Vinti, also known as The Vanquished, and Il Grido, also known as The Cry. In The Vanquished, it's 3 stories, one set in France, one set in Italy, one set in England, looking at the violence and hedonism and cult, what do they call it? Cult of self? Vicious cult of self? Something like poisonous cult of self of the, what they called the New Lost Generation, which was the now teenagers who were children during the war who crave violence and attention and fame from violence. And so in the French version, a group of kids, I'm going to spoil the whole thing, sorry. In the French version, a group of kids plot to murder their friend for his money. In the Italian one, a kid finds himself down the path of black market cigarettes, and it does not end well for him. And in the English story, based on a true story, a teenager murders a woman and then tries to get fame from finding her body. The film is not that great. There's moments that are really good. And the opening sequence where they talk about why they're making these films and what they've noticed in the change in teenagedom is really fascinating. And there's aspects of it that are really good, and there's aspects of it that feel like it was written by 8 people, which is another one of these films that has 6 screenwriters. So, and it's weird, the version that I watched was mostly dubbed in Italian, but parts of the French were in French, but parts of the French were in Italian. But apparently there's a version that is available where they have the actual English and the Italian and the French restored how they originally were filmed. It's an interesting film, and definitely one for Antonioni completists. It's available in America from Kino and currently still streaming on Filmstruck till next Friday. El Grido won the Golden Leopard from the Locarno Film Festival in 1957. It feels very much like a bridge between his Italian neorealist roots and his sort of, what do we call it, existential films from the 60s, where the plot very much feels like the angst of his later films. It's a man who is unhappy in his life, and he's going through all these changes, and everything is just depressing, and nothing is working out for him, and the location is depressing, and just a whole lot of depression, basically. An inability to connect with anybody, because a real connection is just something that's not within his grasp. And but it's not set in the like bourgeois. It's working class people in Po Valley. He's a sugar refinery worker. There's aspects of sort of the post-war um, poverty that was still striking outside of the city centers in Italy, and the ways in which they were attempting to revitalize these communities. And the end sort of talks about that and how basically to revitalize the community, they just destroyed it. So it's a depressing film. It has aspects, I think, of, or it may have inspired some later films of father-daughter travel films like Paper Moon, because there's a good deal of it is the main character Aldo wandering the countryside with his daughter. Um, it's not quite the same as Paper Moon, but it's got some similar aspects. Strangely, Aldo is played by Steve Cochran, and one of his girlfriends that he visits in the film is played by Betsy Blair. And true to Italian cinema's, way of being, they're dubbed in Italian because it's always dubbed. But it's Steve Cochran and Betsy Blair, and you know that they don't speak Italian, and you're like, what are they actually saying? Or did they like speak the Italian by phonetics? Or I'm not really sure. It was a little strange. Like seeing Alita Valley dubbed into Italian, I'm like, okay, I can imagine that. But Steve Cochran and Betsy Blair in particular, being dubbed into Italian was really weird. This one I liked a little bit more than The Vanquished. It's definitely an interesting film in the oeuvre of Antonioni because it's so different from his later films, but still not quite the same as his older films. And it's definitely the film where because you see the roots of his later films in almost all of his early films, but this is the one where you really start to see it take form. So this was The Vanquished and El Grido, both by Michelangelo Antonioni. They're both available from Kino on DVD, or you can stream them on Filmstruck until next Friday when they expire, and I recommend them both.